Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Souls of Black Folk. I'm your host, Brandon Pankey, and today we are meeting with the Chief Curating Officer and co-founder of Blaccurated Pantry and the Vice President of Research for Octagon, Ms. Cristina Ackas. Thank you, Cristina, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. Why did you start Blaccurated Pantry, and what is Blaccurated?
Yeah. Blaccurated Pantry is basically an online specialty food market. And what we've done is we've stocked our shelves 100% with Black-owned food and beverage brands. So really the point of it was to not just create this marketplace of great food, healthier snack alternatives, but also to make sure that the dollar continues to extend within our Black communities by supporting Black-owned food and beverage brands.
So you're helping us, from an economic perspective, but why are these food alternatives important? What's the big deal?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with kind of the predecessor to Blaccurated Pantry, that's Brain, which is also one of the brands that we have. Brain Fuel was started by myself and other moms of color, and the mission was really to get fresh produce delivered to college students on campus. So we know, especially within our communities, that there is or there are kind of bad eating. So how can we know that those habits start as a child, but really the best opportunity to switch is actually during the college and early adult years. So what we were thinking was, okay, if we can have a produce, subscription service actually reach these college students at a lower cost than these standard subscription services, see if they can be subsidized by the schools directly, even being part of it, well, then we're not just providing them great food and healthy food options, but we're providing it at a low cost. And we already know that also cost is a big prohibitor to why we choose a Big Mac over a salad. So as the world would have it, COVID hit. So all of our planning, all of our research, all of our reaching out, getting boxes, it was kind of like, okay, well, everyone is home now, so what do we do? Like any business trying to flourish, it definitely not a stop, but it was really a pivot. How do we pivot? And then, of course, with everything that happened within our communities, George Floyd's, Breonna Taylor's, it was like, okay, how do we also redirect and continue to just make our communities better? How do we make that initiative? How do we intend to do so? That's why the brands that we do stock also are they're answering different dietary restrictions and needs, right? We have a large vegan selection. We are making sure any of the spices or seasonings are low sodium. It's little changes that we're hoping people make, because truly health is wealth as well. So the idea of fresh produce and how the selection of food has been such a deterrent for a lot of individuals is really the fact that we, African Americans especially, live in food deserts, right?
A lot of it.
From a food desert standpoint, just basic definition, basically in neighborhoods that don't have access to markets. And right now, 0.5 million Americans actually live within. Furthermore, that number is actually underrepresented because think about corner stores or convenience stores. A lot of the researchers count those. And we all know that our stores in some of our urban neighborhoods aren't keeping healthy. And that's really the differentiator. It's not food, it's access to healthy foods. And I think we look at the impact of COVID and how it just disproportionately hit our communities because of the health issues that we have. And we know that those health issues, the underlying issues do have to deal with what we put in our bodies, right? We're suffering from obesity and diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure at a much higher rate than any other demographic. And it's like, how do we help ourselves? And so just kind of trying to come to food deserts, trying to build just eating habits. Again, like you don't have to go full vegan, but just giving options of, you know, this, that. Little switches. And that's why we also are focusing on like our Black Curated Pantry, right? So it's really pantry items. So it's about the everyday foods that you are taking in. So that's why we really wanted to focus on those without it being this huge drastic change. We support anyone that wants to do a huge drastic change, but we're really here to just help bridge that gap.
Can you hear me, Cristina?
Yep.
And you go over some of those statistics. You were cutting in and out a bit. Some of those statistics about, you know, just the food deserts and just the type of drastic differences there are between low-income Black communities and food options and other communities here in America.
Yep. So out of that 3.5 million that are living in a food desert, a majority of them are Black and are low income. When you look at a city like Chicago, and the death rate due to obesity-based illnesses and even diabetes specifically is 2 times higher amongst those living in a food desert than those that don't live in a food desert. It goes back to even just the redlining, right? When you think about real estate and where our communities or how we are in our communities, it goes into more than just mortgages. It's also bank loans, right? So even if a supermarket is looking within a specific area, they can't get that loan because it's not seen as profitable. And that happens on much more than you think, because there are definitely individuals and there are definitely businesses that are trying to help solve that food desert crisis, but it's hard, right? Because at the end of the day, you still want to be a successful. Yeah. I think one of the things that's really interesting is the urban farms that are popping up, right? So you're seeing a lot of those vacant lots turning into farms and really growing fresh produce. And it goes back to just how intentional we are with helping ourselves. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you look at the numbers, like the percentage of Blacks that even live within those food deserts. It's 2-3 times higher are kind of the other demographics. And when we don't even account for that percentage of the US, that's where it gets really just mind boggling. Like we are just the disparities that are there tie back into so many other issues that through. And so it's really why we just set out to, again, include those healthy options.
And I want everyone listening to understand how this all connects, right? Thinking about systemic politics. If you are in a low-income community, if you are African American or Hispanic, and you are in a low-income community, your educational options are not as great. If your educational options are not as great, then when you're going through the system, then guess what? Your job opportunity for your career is not going to be as great. If you have a poor career, you're going to be living in a neighborhood or in a community that is not as great. And then your food options are not going to be great in that particular community, which means that your health care is going to be significantly impacted and you're not living the best quality of life. So all of these things, when we're talking education, healthcare, when we're talking food equity, all of these things are relatable, and we need to understand how they all fit together into the system. So I didn't mean to cut you off on that one, Cristina.
No, it's totally fine. And I think that a lot of the times, even within we blame the individual.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case. There's so many outside factors that are impacting just what we have access to.
Right.
And I think you make a really good point with the education, even down to health education.
Yep.
Right? In the schools that are predominantly Black, predominantly low income, health education is, bottom of the list. And furthermore, even when they go home, how is it reinforced? It's usually not. And it's just because of the dynamics. It's because they don't have access to it. So it's hard to, yourself new when you're not even exposed to it. So that's definitely something that we're trying to look at as well, is like, how do we push their snack options to moms, right? Like, how do we make sure that we can be that bridge again to ensure that kids start those eating habits early in a healthy manner?
Cristina, I sort of touched on it, but why isn't there a Wegmans or a Whole Foods in certain communities? Why is it that, I see a McDonald's, a Wendy's, and a Burger King literally lined up, across multiple blocks, but I don't necessarily see healthier food options?
So, because we know their target audience, right? So one of the interesting things, having lived on and off for a number of years, it was interesting being in Bed-Stuy and going to the corner store, right? And it's all food, it's snacks, sugar, high sodium. And then once Bed-Stuy gentrified, the corner stores are now, there's a little produce section, and there's other options. And it's just, right, they're following a certain demographic. And that's why it's important to know that decisions that are made are very intentional. So when you see a Trader Joe's open in a neighborhood, that was probably, you would think would be surprising. Not done their research, and they know that probably a change of tide, if there isn't already, happening with the graphics of that neighborhood. Again, these supermarkets, right, especially the ones that are all about specialty foods and healthier options, they're a business at the end of the day, and they want profits. And furthermore, like I mentioned, when they're going for loans to open up a new store, they're not going to get approved by banks by doing it in a neighborhood that is low income and predominantly African American. It's just not going to happen. I think you'll see here and there instances of stores trying to do the right thing, right? You'll have a healthy store pop up, and a lot of times they end up closing in a few years. That's not because our community isn't trying, right? It's really because it's usually someone that doesn't have a background in running a grocery store, right? It's usually someone that just doesn't have that expertise. So now they are opening a grocery store. They're only providing healthy options, and that's also not the right. You have to provide what they need, but also what they want. So it's kind of this delicate dance that you have to do in order to be successful. But again, if they don't have that background, they're coming in, they're trying to do the right thing, and unfortunately, they're losing in a year or two. So really, though, to answer your question, is because I want to be there.
Right. That's a great point. Did you find it difficult, with all the options part of Black? Was it difficult to find some of these items? What was that research process? Because when I go to a grocery store, I don't see a lot of Black-owned food products anyway.
Yeah, you'll hear I am all intentional, right? And you have to be intentional. I think one of the good things that happened was all of a sudden all of these Black directories popped up, right? And there showed all these Black brands that whether we knew or didn't know, were Black owned. But, and this was another area where it was like, goodness, like hell is always the last on the list, because we're seeing all these beauty brands, we're seeing apparel brands, and I'm like, I know we have food and beverage, but it was a little bit harder, but good old Google. But definitely there were still some resources. And what I love, and even once I started reaching out and talking to individual brands, what I loved was that there is this inner network. Right. So it's like, oh, you know what? I have a friend that does this. I know someone that does this. But it was literally like trying to check off the box for each category. I remember going down and I'm like, spices, check, sauce. And I was like, rice. I cannot find a Black owned rice brand. But the way that my mind works, I was like, we'll just have to buy a field and grow some rice. I don't know what that will entail, but then you have Master P who comes out with the rice. But it's just, it was a hard process. It was a lot of work, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, but truly when you actually talking to these owners, their stories and their backgrounds and their connection to the community became so inspirational as well. And it actually helped continue to change how we're selecting brands. So, you're not going to find every food and beverage brand on Black Curated Pantry, because we're also looking for, other than the high quality, some kind of health benefit or alternative, we're also looking for brands that are giving back to our community somehow, right? So when you follow the dollar that is spent on Black Curated Pantry and you see it, if you buy from one of our partners, like local artisan food, so they have a French toast seasoning, right? That dollar continues to go into the community as well, right? I know her staff makes sure to reach out to high school students within Philly. So it's just to see how the dollar is put back into the community was so important. And that's just another kind of requirement when we're looking at these brands. But it was a hard process. It was worth it. And I think with everything that was going on, I was able to redirect my energy. And that's what we need also from just like a mental health standpoint. It was like finding these brands. How are we going to work together? And the Blaccurated Pantry online marketplace is the first step. I'm like, how do we build a distribution network, right? Like, because then when you look at even some of the price points, they're a little bit high for our brands. But when you think about the lack of access to resources that we have, that's a problem too. We can't produce 1 million cookies for $1 and sell them for 50 cents. Like, we just can't do it. We're just the lack of access, lack of resources, all continues to go into the barriers for us, even when it comes down to entrepreneurship. So truly, we're looking at Blaccurated Pantry as a way to continue to just empower our community through health, through economics, and just knowledge sharing.
That's great. And I noticed, during it, so many more of us want to help, want to figure out ways to do better, to be a little bit more socially impactful for our community. You are the vice president of research at Octagon. What gave you, I mean, that's a great career. What gave you, I guess, the courage, or of course I'd say, you know what, I know I'm here and I'm doing great for myself, for my family, but I need to do more over here. I need to make sure that I'm impacting more of us and making sure that people are eating better, are doing better. Like, what gave you that? Because I think that'll help some of our viewers and people who may say, you know what, I may not be able to do, what I really want to. What gave you the drive to do that?
I will say that my professional career, I don't want to say has always allowed. I've always integrated myself and who I am and my desires to help my community in what I do. So on top of, my everyday strategy research role, I lead our Black employees. So that, and just helping our employees have a voice and have a safe space, it's no different than the efforts I put outside of. It's just that it's through a different project, basically. So what I would really say to anyone is just, I think first you can start small, right? You don't have to change day one. I think it's really about where do you want to have impact, and focus on it and work at it. I mean, don't get me wrong, with everything wise, everything for my Ben groups, and everything just going on within the world, there were definitely days where I was like, I don't build a marketplace. I don't want to talk to anyone. But waking up every day and actually having those focus with our brands, and it was almost therapy for me. And again, that's why it was so much about like redirecting my energy. I feel like I could have been in a low place, but it was like, no, we're going to push forward. This is not the time to give up. So what I would say is, you feel like you're at your busiest, probably more you can do. That's
Your phone's freezing again.
something that's rewarding. Just find something that is rewarding. That's what's going to push you. That's going to give you that drive. That's what's going to keep you up at night, because especially when you have 9 to 5, your work comes in after hours. Your work comes in when everyone else is sleeping. So find that passion. And for me, food has always been that passion. I mean, one of the first conversations, I was like, I just want sauces. I want to curate all the sauces because I'm a sauce girl. But, again, that just being my role, it was like, no, we're gonna reach out to all of these brands. And by finding how much they were giving back, it really was therapy for me.
Can you talk about some of the brands that you have as a part of Black Curating? Is it stuff that I can eat that we can all eat and enjoy?
Yes. So we have Brain Fuel, who is our produce subscription service. So if you want those fresh fruits and vegetables and really healthy snacks, I mean, we have something, our in-house chef actually curates her own recipes for brand fuel, and she's doing she's doing like this when the mac and cheese hits the candied yams trail. Like, I'm not even a trail girl, but I like that. I like when it touches each other on the plate, so I'm going for it. So we have brain fuel, we have Partake cookies. So Partake cookies actually just won, not won, but received investment from Jay-Z's venture capital firm. So we have brands that are really big, and we have brands that are just starting out. We have the brands in the middle. We have, like I mentioned, local artisan foods. She actually went to university with me, so, and has her French toast seasoning. We have Kaivan Food. That's actually, they have sauces and this jambalaya sauce, these like salsas as well. And they, are a couple from the South, and they, like I said, like their story is amazing and how much they give back to their community as well. Oh gosh, I'm gonna feel bad if I leave them. We have cheese nuts. She does nut butter off of using cashews as the base. She even has a pistachio one. So if peanuts aren't your thing, you have these different options. Who else do we have? We have, oh, they're going to slip my mind, but we're launching with about 10, 11. And then each week we'll be rolling out new ones that we're adding, and others kind of getting up to speed. And one of the things that we're always going to do is really highlight their story, right? So how they're giving back, how your stretches, how they even came to be. We also have one other one that I really love is the Rosella's sweet potato pancake mix. So like again, it's specialty food. So there's very interesting combinations of ingredients that we have, and you'll definitely see that. We have Lindigo spice. They have like but they also have like these chutneys that look amazing. So it's really like those specialty foods, those that you aren't going to find, probably won't find on your regular grocery store or supermarket shelf. And that's what we want. We want to provide that shelf space.
That's great. When do you launch, and where can you go to find out more information?
Yeah, so you can visit our page at Blaccurated, or you can go to blaccurated.com. We launch tomorrow, so you can start putting in orders tomorrow, but you can sign up for, enough promotions and dates today if you want to visit the site. So yeah, you can, and then you can always just reach out to me, Cristina Ackas. So any way you can find us. But my other two co-founders, Venetia and Violet, hopefully they're on, so hi. But they, they're also just a great avenue to talk to. We're in New York, but again, the beauty of the online marketplace is that our products are everywhere, and our customers will too.
That's great. Well, Cristina, thank you for making time. As stated, Blaccurated Pantry launches at midnight. Actually, I'm reading right midnight tonight. Blaccurated.com for more information. Thank you for providing another source of Black-owned food products for us to enjoy. Thank you for making time today on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This has been another episode of The Souls of Black Folk. My name is Brandon Pink. We'll be back next week. Thank you on behalf of Live Nation. Thank you again, Cristina, for making time.
Thank you.